forgot to start recording there. I've been able to get this sorted out properly, so ideally I won't have issues streaming this game anymore. This is all tech issues that no one really is going to care about. But during my stream of 007 First Light, there was an issue that I was having while streaming the game where the OBS kept telling me that the encoder was overloaded. And I didn't know what that meant, so I had to, end the stream slightly earlier than I intended. It was never going to be a particularly long 007 stream anyway, because my intention was to play the game for less than 2 hours, because I'm debating whether or not to try to get a Steam refund for it. I haven't posted the 007 stream. I'm going to. It's just that I'm kind of waffling on whether or not to keep the game just because it's $70. Sure, I had the $70 to spend, but it's like, do I really want that game that badly? So my intention is to maybe apply for a Steam refund, or I might just keep the game because I've quite liked what I played of it. Mind you, I only really did, the opening level and some of the tutorial stuff, but I enjoyed my time with 007 First Light. I almost called it Last Light for some reason, but I'm pretty sure that's a zombie game, I think. Something Last Light, I don't know. But I kind of wanted to just play Path of Exile 2 because, one, I love this game. It's great. I've never played Path of Exile 2. I've never played Path of Exile 1, but, I've played 2. And I've just greatly enjoyed my time with it. So I kind of wanted to go back to it, but I am sort of ADD about playing games I actually enjoy. Or I'll, get home from work and just be like, well, I could play a game, or what if I took a nap? I always listen to the devil that way. But I wanted to primarily use this as a visual component for my ramble that I'm going to go on about the game Rule of Rose. I don't know how long necessarily my ramble tangent's going to be. I don't think it's going to be nearly as long as some of my ramble tangents about, like Higurashi or things like that. But I honestly was tempted to not stream this and instead make the stream another Elden Ring Night Rain stream where I'm trying to break out of level 2 Deep of Night Jail. But I decided I would actually play this. I feel I've been terrible about actually fulfilling my, promises sounds dramatic. I've made schedules where I put Path 2 on there, and it's just like, alright, go play. And it's like, but I don't want to. It's 85 degrees. It's hot. Incidentally, I do apologize if you hear a fan going. I have decided that you can more or less survive listening to the slight hum of the fan versus me potentially dying of heat exhaustion. I'll die a different time, thank you. That's what the Harapan stream will be. But yeah, a few streams ago, because we're doing this one, yesterday was Dark Souls, day before that was 007. 4 streams ago? We're counting this one, so yeah, 4 streams ago. I finished the my first playthrough of Rule of Rose on stream, also on YouTube, youtube.com/twitchinghenchman. That's where you can find all my VODs because I'm not yet an affiliate, so I can't place them here. And I had some thoughts that I wanted to share about Rule of Rose. I'm going to be forthcoming and say that some of my thoughts about the game might be entirely inaccurate because I haven't, played through the game a second time. I didn't collect all the film canisters, for instance. I'm certain that there's something related to the plot with those. So I could theoretically just mention something about the plot, and then it turns out that because I haven't, completed the game, 5 times or whatever, there's plot details I'm missing. Let's see here. Okay, so we need to go... We'll just go with melee damage. Last time I did stream Path of Exile, I know that it was fairly early days into Act 1. I thought about playing as a different class going forward, but I've more or less decided to just stick with the warrior. I want to learn how to play the class better before I immediately just kick it out of, kick it in the head and play something else. I still feel somewhat guilty that that's what I did with the druid class. That being said about Rule of Rose, though, about how I haven't, 100% of the game, etc., etc., there will be spoilers for it. So, if you're at all interested, I don't know why you're here. That's a negative viewpoint to have. If you're interested in Rule of Rose, but you don't want to hear my pseudo review and some thoughts about the narrative and themes, you should probably just duck out now. I won't blame you if you did. Although, if you did do that, please give me a like, follow, etc. I want to hit affiliate so bad you wouldn't believe. I don't even want to be partner. I don't want to try to monetize this. I just want to be able to save my VODs here. I don't need to keep putting 600 gigabytes of video on my hard drive. I'm gonna run out of space eventually. let's make an orb of augmentation. Gameplay-wise, Rule of Rose is a bit of an odd one to me. There's, you know, you could hand wave away the poor combat in survival horror games because, you know, it's typically just like regular people in these horrifying scenarios. They're not like, you know, a cracked military squadron. At which point I would kindly like to refer you to Resident Evil. There's no excuse for the controls there, but there you go. But the, a theory that is fairly prevalent around Rule of Rose is that Jennifer, the main character, the Jennifer we see running around is how she looks now, you know, relative to the timeline of the game. But everything that happens on the airship was from when she was, you know, a young child, like 10 or so. I don't know how old the kids in Rule of Rose are. So her lack of combat prowess is explained away by the fact that, you know, she's, you know, 10 or so, so it wouldn't make sense narratively that she could, you know, million stab the little monster kids, the imps. Which, fine, I guess you could use that as an excuse for the some of the gameplay conceits in the game. It's fine to use that as a narrative for why Jennifer is not a skilled combatant. Right, I need dexterity. I should have used that for this. Ah, that was a foolish blunder on my part. Upgrades normal or magic items to a rare with 4 random modifiers. Should I use that? $32 to $48. $31 to $42. Alright, let's do that, I suppose. Let's leech some life as well. I think I have enough Ferricium to be able to mod weapons with the Runesmith. I'm gonna have to go back to town and check, but you know, Jennifer is in theory a 10-year-old child, which is why she covers her eyes sometimes when she swings her weapons, or despite swinging a, you know, a big lead pipe at something, that's why she misses a few of her shots, that sort of thing. Again, whether or not you buy into that, that's entirely up to you. I think it's a pretty acceptable reason. It's gonna turn into the wolf soon, I think. You know, also gameplay-wise, it's explained, I suppose, in supplemental material that, the imps are, you know, representative of, like, the other children at the orphanage who aren't part of the aristocrats club. You know, they help bully Jennifer and do the bidding of the aristocrats. Which is why they're kind of faceless. I don't know, you know, there's like 3 bosses in the game. Hoffman, Stray Dog at the end, technically 4, I guess, and the mermaid. I don't know what the mermaid is meant to represent. Like, I know that it's explained in the game that Diana more or less, like, identifies with mermaids. You know, unattainable beauties and so on. I don't really understand why Clara is the mermaid boss. But, you know, there is some speculation I've read about that I don't know if I want to get into here. Primarily because with some of the things that I read, I don't know if it's just like massive spoilers and I'm just setting myself up for disappointment by playing through the game again. That, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Allegedly, the mermaid metaphor is because Clara was a victim of Hoffman. Also, I need to just... We're theoretically all adults here. I should really just quit dancing around the subject. Somehow, I don't know how exactly, the mermaid that Diana and Clara theoretically represent is representative of the sexual abuse they experienced at the hands of Hoffman. I'm not entirely sure how that makes sense, but that is a theory that I read somewhere. The mermaid fight was like the one fight in the game that I genuinely didn't like. I had my problems with the with some of the combat rooms in the game. There were plenty of times where, you know, you get locked into a room and you have to fight, you know, a bunch of imps, but because of Jennifer's lack of fighting prowess, you know, they're far more difficult than they really feel they should be. Why did I totem? I should have just Earth Struck. Son of a bitch. I was so close. It's because I hit T. I hit T and that caused difficulties for me, and it's everyone else's fault, it's not mine. I assume that you could probably interpret the mermaid's, you know, AoE acid attack as sort of a metaphor for potentially morning sickness. You know, they never outright say anything about that. The game is very coy about the fact that it's all more or less just implications in the game. You know, except for the part where Hoffman gets handsy with Diana. That's pretty direct, I think. So, this is just my own theory. I don't know if there's anything to back this up. I think you could probably interpret the... Come on, get out of the ice. I think you could probably interpret the AoE attack as representative of morning sickness. There's a file you can find, I think it's in the game. I don't think I read it in like a making of documentary or anything like that. Where you can find like some descriptions of some of the other characters in the orphanage. And how Clara basically... She's always crying whenever there's an adult around. Which, oh, that's not a good thing, considering, you know, the more or less confirmed fact that she's a victim of sexual abuse. It's specifically noted that she never cries when there's no adults around, so... The way I kind of interpreted it as the person... Because it's presented as, like, a journal of a character in the game. It never says who exactly. I got the feeling that it was more or less, like, whoever wrote the journal entry was kind of trying to shift the blame on to Clara. You know, that she's acting, basically. Okay, good. We're still recording. This would be very upsetting if I weren't. Let's see, what is that attached to? Goblin Shaman. Theoretically it's somewhere. Where the hell is it? Is it a... Okay, yeah, no, it's just a portal. It's a portal skin. Yeah, we'll do that in a second. We'll do that in a second, dear. Okay. Shit, I forgot to grab whatever items those were. I don't think there's even going to be anything worthwhile in here for me. Oh well, what are you going to do? So, but the implication I sort of felt was that the person who wrote the journal entry about Clara was, you know, more or less trying to just, like, shift the blame onto her. You know, that she's just, like, faking the abuse, more or less. Again, this is based on absolutely nothing. I'm probably wrong here. Where is my Versium? I should really, like, label my stash tabs. My main problem with Rule of Rose gameplay-wise isn't even necessarily like the combat rooms. My problem is the fact that there are times in the game where it's like you need to go, you know, from one end of the airship to the other, and there's just like a lot of areas in the game that are just like sort of sealed off, but there are just as many that are all wide open, but they don't really do anything. So there's, you know, you'll be forced to go through like every single room, and it's like you've got a 50-50 chance of just sort of being like locked in a combat room for no good reason. This happens a lot in the very final section of the game, the orphanage. But it kind of just happens throughout the whole game as well. It's not just limited to the end game. The final area, I guess I should say. It's kind of interesting how Brown is like an integral, you know, he's a vital tool to doing the game. I like the fact that he will tell, you know, he'll tell you when there's items within a certain radius of where you are. You know, sometimes you'll just have him snip an item and then he just sort of whines and, you know, that's it. He doesn't do anything, but 6 rooms away he'll be like, oh, follow me this way. There's a thing. There's a trinket. So Brown can kind of keep you on track, you know, because you have him sniff key items, and then he'll more or less lead you to where you need to go to find the next, you know, item for the next puzzle, the next lock. Now that I think about it, there actually wasn't like puzzles in this game at all, really. You know, there were areas where you needed to have Brown, you know, like, untie you when you're tied to a pillar. A girder, I guess. Not a pillar. It's an airship, it's not Stonehenge. But there is never any... Like, the worst of the air quotes puzzles is it's usually just like find item X. You know, find the red bird of happiness, find a rabbit, find Sir Peter the stuffed bear, Sir Joshua the stuffed bear, that sort of thing. There wasn't really any, like, puzzles, if that makes sense. I think it makes sense. You know, it was pretty much just like you're just going from room to room trying to find... More or less, you're just following Brown the whole time, having him, you know, unlock the next adventure sparkle, and then you carry on. Which is fine, I don't mind it. I didn't mind that aspect of the game. I'm not expecting there to be some, well, I was going to say some big, like, combat trial, but it's like, no, there are combat rooms all throughout the game. What is this? Rune of the Bosom. That seems like that could be a pretty good item to have, because a lot of stuff requires spirits, right? Oh, good plus 90. Didn't have to think about that very hard. You know, I wasn't expecting, like, the game to just give Jennifer a Tommy gun and be like, well, sort it out. Apparently, the single gun you can find in the game isn't very good. If this walkthrough on GameFAQs is to be believed. I liked my time with Rule of Rose. I generally like survival horror games. But I absolutely would not blame anyone from just, like, watching a stream or a Let's Play of it. As a matter of fact, I hear there's a pretty dandy one on YouTube by some fellow named Twitching Henchman. You should probably watch that. Please, for the love of God, watch it. I've only got, like, 10 views each. I'm not above begging. You know, typically with games, I think that you should actually play the games before you try to act like you're some sort of expert on the game. You know, regardless if you're just focusing on the story or not. But I don't think it's particularly, like, the worst idea to just, like, watch a stream of the game. I'm not saying you should go watch, like, a cutscene compilation, because I don't think the game deserves that level of disrespect. But then again, the game's 20 years old. I'm pretty sure everyone that worked on it, they don't think about that game at all. I really liked the story in the game, though. But, you know, circling back for just a quick second. With some of these survival horror games, you can have, like, not exactly the best combat in the game, I think, but still walk away from it with a pretty strong feeling on the game, you know? Okay. Oh, thank God, I can actually use this now. Where did you go? I think you went on Perfect Strike. Herald of Ass, why not? On the one hand, I think you should absolutely play Rule of Rose. It's well worth playing, but you're kind of not missing much by just like taking on a more passive, just watching a video of the game, you know? Please don't do just like watch a story compilation, a cutscene compilation. There's some pretty good soundtrack in Rule of Rose, I think. Also, I just generally think that, whatever happened to Delwyn? I just sort of think that games from the PlayStation 2 era, they just sort of have, like, a certain visual charm to them. Where you get, like, a lot of graphical detail, but it's, like, stylized to the point that it doesn't... It's not jarring that it's so realistic nowadays, you know? It didn't age poorly, visually speaking. Of course, I also don't think the game aged poorly in general at all. I think it holds up really, really well. I should take the spear just because I have a huntress I'm considering playing. I kind of want to write down my thoughts about the game after I do at least one more playthrough of it. Primarily just because, one, I feel I can present my information a lot more concisely and less rambly. And I just really feel like the game's worth talking about. It is surprisingly thoughtful despite some of the themes. It could have been handled a lot worse, you know? Of course, I don't know what any of like the bonus costumes actually look like. For all I know, I'm going to be eating those words very shortly. But then again, I can't imagine, regardless of the extra costumes, I can't imagine there's going to be very much in the way of fan service. At least that's what I'm pretty confident about. Oh, heavens. Please identify. Thank you. Let's see what else we have. Yep, should probably save that one. I don't know where. Okay, there they are. Okay, good. She can break my stuff. I wasn't sure if, since we're not actually on the caravan yet, that she wouldn't do that. That she would do that, I mean. Story-wise, Rule of Rose really stands out to me because of the fact it's got an interesting premise where it's kind of focusing on, you know, some of... I mentioned this before, there's quite a few PS2 survival horror games that they focus more or less on the idea of like the horrors of womanhood. You know, you got plenty of games nowadays that feature things like that. There's yeah, anyway. The only game I could really think of was Gone Home. And whether or not you classify that as a horror, that's an entirely different discussion that I don't feel like having right now. But you have, you know, the plot of the game, most of the horrors that happen in it aren't even really directed at Jennifer. She's just sort of like an unwilling witness to these events. There's, you know, everything with the mermaid princess, stray dog killing everyone in the orphanage. Jennifer wasn't there for that. She had lucked out and just like, you know, was like adopted or I don't know, just like out of town that day. So she wasn't present when everyone got murdered. You know, she does experience horror because Wendy, you know, subjects her to, you know, a bunch of, you know, abuse and getting bullied by basically everyone else in the orphanage. But she never really experiences like the horrors on her own, you know? Bad bot, get timed out. Every horror she experiences in the game outside of the airship disaster is actually entirely just because of Wendy. It's funny. What the shit was that? Oy. I find it kind of funny how one of the reasons why the game got banned in England was because of a sensationalist Italian newspaper. Basically, it was like Rule of Rose needs to be banned because it features, you know, pornographic underage lesbian stuff, lesbian sex, I guess. And there's not really anything of the sort in the game. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that, you know, there's no hint of sexuality at all in the game. You know, Hoffman exists. There was the rope marks on Gregory's body. So there's that. But any of the hints of the underage lesbian stuff is entirely just a pair of relationships that are one-sided crushes, one of which ends extremely poorly. The relationship between Diana and Meg is an interesting one because of the fact that Meg, you know, she wrote her letter to Diana professing her undying love to her, basically. But Diana just, like, didn't care. Whether or not it was because, you know, she just wasn't interested that way, or if she was, like, put off because of the, you know, abuse she was starting to experience as a result of her more grown-up body. That's a debate for a different time. But, you know, she more or less just, like, strings Meg along about their relationship, but then, you know, she just uses her to just, like, amuse herself when Meg gets upset that Jennifer finds her letter. You know, the one that Diana ripped in half because she really didn't care about Meg's confession. So I just found it kind of interesting how, you know, Diana was more or less just, like, preying upon Meg's desire for her for seemingly no reason. I assume just because she found it funny. She was a rather cruel child, so it makes sense that she more or less just, like, found amusement in Meg's, what's the word I'm looking for? Meg's confession? Her crush on her? No, that's not very good, is it? Okay, not magic, so that was a waste. Do I even have... Give me a new modifier. I guess we got better stun duration. Stun duration. Stun duration, yep. And, you know, Meg seemed to be more or less just, like, willing to go with whatever Diana wanted, primarily just because of her, you know, love of her. So she didn't really seem to be aware that she was getting used. The character I find the most interesting is actually Eleanor, because I couldn't really say what her deal is. She seemed largely uninterested in the goings-on of the Aristocrats Club. I know I just said I found her to be the most interesting, but honestly, I kind of am impressed by the characterization of Amanda. Her sniveling, conniving behavior was truly awe-inspiring, and the fact that this kid is, you know, 12 or so, but she was, you know, manipulating as just as hard as everyone else in the Aristocrats Club. Where are we going? I forget. So I just found her to be a very interesting character because of how two-faced she was. She was a very effective, hateable character. Hateable and hateful. I liked I liked Wendy's character, even though she didn't really, she was the cause of everything bad that happened with the orphanage, but she kind of didn't really factor into the plot that much. I feel that she sort of represented like a childhood crush sort of situation. Like, she was, interested in her back when Jennifer was interested in her back when she was, a preteen. But as she grew up, she eventually, she moved on, even though Wendy very clearly didn't. Jennifer never took the relationship as seriously as Wendy did. She might have had, a bit of a thing for Wendy, but Wendy's, murder of Brown really put the nail in the coffin there and just killed that relationship. I feel that Wendy is an interesting character, though, because of the fact that you hardly ever see in popular fiction a female example of the "if I can't have you, nobody will" trope. I'm not saying that it never happens. Yanderes exist. They've existed for a good long while. But they've never really been in, like, major types of media, I suppose you could argue that the girl, I forget her name, in School Days, who takes the main character and his would-be girlfriend on a trip on their nice boat. You could argue that that's a yandere, but you hardly ever see that from, like, with a woman as the antagonist. It's typically men who are portrayed so. I suppose that's probably truth in advertising, but I really don't think that that's the can of worms we need to go into right now. It was just interesting to me how fucking hell. How, Wendy's motive could be summed up with, "if I can't have you, no one else will." But she did seem to sort of, like, genuinely, like, mentally deranged enough that when Jennifer rejected her, she seemed confused by it. She tried to get everyone back on her side by doing by pulling the trick with Stray Dog. But in terms of her and Jennifer, she just sort of seemed confused by the rejection more than anything. I don't even know what the film canisters could even be, because I thought briefly about, like, looking up the film reels on YouTube, but honestly, I kind of want to just find that out on my own. Like, I don't think that the game is going to more or less just be like, and this is what this really meant. Fast gain plus 2 charge, 0.2 charge. Guess we'll go acrobatics. Like, I'm positive if I really put my mind to it and weren't just also playing Path of Exile 2 at the same time, I think I could theory craft a pretty compelling narrative, you know, what the game was actually about, type of idea. It was a very good game, though. I can understand why the people that played it said it was as good as it was. So, it wasn't overhyped, in my opinion. It is by no means a perfect game. I think I've complained about the combat rooms and so on. The camera, the Pix camera being kind of having the wonky workaround of if you push R2 or L2, it just sort of like pans around you to get behind you. That could probably have been handled slightly better gameplay-wise. But overall, I thought it was a good time that I had with the game. I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, but after the second playthrough that I'll be doing, I probably won't ever play it again. It's a good game, but it's not an all-timer, you know? So, if you're only here for my slight ramble tangent on Rule of Rose, that's it. Unless I think of like another couple of things to bring up later on, this is basically the end of my thoughts on Rule of Rose. I'm probably going to move on to talking about other stuff now. I kind of want to do like a fully edited video of various game demos that I've played recently. You know, not even necessarily stuff for like Steam Fest or whatever it's called, just like demos for games that I played. Because I don't think anyone really would want like a full playthrough of Pain Go Away. And I don't know how captivating it would be if I played a visual novel on stream. Especially since I can't voice act for shit. Man, these are a lot of guys that just showed up out of nowhere. Acrobatics. Wire heat these here? I don't understand. Is there a way to... Input, that's where that would be. I was trying to see if there was a way to, like, highlight items. No, I don't think Controls use it. Yeah, no, that wasn't it. I've been watching some other people stream this game, and they're able to, like, have gems and so on make, like, a special, unique drop sound. So it's like, I need to figure out how to do that. But yeah, I want to do, like, a little, like, fully edited and written video about my thoughts of various game demos that I've played recently. Mainly just so I can start uninstalling games off of Steam. I have 91 fucking games installed here. But also, I kind of just, like, I want to hype up some of the stuff that I've played that I think's interesting. You know, I don't think I quite have the reach where I'm gonna really influence anyone's purchasing decisions, but I just want to talk about games I think are neat. Like, you might think it's cringy and embarrassing that I like the game lovebite.exe, for instance, which could be more or less summed up as a Discord simulator, where in the game you play as a viewer of a popular VTuber named Equinox, who one day during a stream, he just sort of, like, takes off, disappears for, like, months, and you eventually join, like, a Discord. It's called Biscord in the game, for various VTuber fans. And, you know, people are initially skeptical of you because your Oshi, Equinox, it's speculated that he did some shady stuff. He was a backstabber, that sort of thing. You know, all the typical fun of internet drama. But eventually, in the game, you start talking to other Discord users, and it's implied during one of the early days, there's like 6 in-game days in the demo, that it's implied that some of the VTubers themselves are in the Discord. So you might theoretically be talking to your Oshi Equinox, who's this, you know, handsome beefcake dude bro. And I liked what I played of it. It's just sort of like a slow burn, just like sort of chatting style of game. Like, you don't... There are some games, I don't remember which one it was, I think it might have been Emily is Away, where you have to, like, actually, like, you know, push keys to mimic typing in the fake AOL Instant Messenger in Emily is Away. Whereas in lovebite.exe, it's just... you're clicking dialogue options. Strange as this might sound, I actually find this game rather terrifying to play. I cannot, for the life of me, really bring myself to talk in Discords, chats, you know, group text, that sort of thing. I can't do it. I get sort of, like, petrified with fear. Because I worry that I'm going to say something and just, like, ruin whatever vibe was going on. And then, you know, everyone hates me, so I'm never going to talk to anyone ever again. That sort of thing. I'm over 30, by the way. I'm a grown-ass adult. I'm almost 40, and I still go on about this sort of thing. But the notion of just, like, talking in a group setting just... it makes me paranoid because I worry that I'll ruin the vibe and then everyone's gonna hate me forever. Or I'll say something, no one will react, and then I'll just have to live with that memory for the rest of my days. Social anxiety is not fun, and honestly, you might be surprised to hear that considering I have my stream where I can talk about just random stuff for a bit anyway. Just admit to the social anxiety where I don't want to talk to people because I don't want to alienate anyone. I live in fear of committing a social faux pas. Should I make that a unique? Okay, I thought maybe I could just, like, swap it out. Wait, what happened? Okay, I guess that rune's gone forever then. I'm really surprised I haven't come across any rings or necklaces yet. Amulets. I don't think it's going to lead to any sort of, like, pornography in the game. Incidentally, that's some of the games I want to talk about with my demo stuff, believe it or not. I will subject people to my opinions on Let's Start the Sexual Relief Club. But there's, I believe it was like a description on the Steam store page where they implied that, you know, you're going to be able to romance some of the Discord users, potentially even your Oshi. And so I'm kind of interested in that, primarily just because I am genuinely trying to find, like, good gay media. I'm not really having very good luck in that regard. Of course, then you have to actually look, and I haven't actually looked. I want to read slow damage. That's what I want to read. Maybe I should read that. Instead of Tsukihime, maybe I should read Slow Damage, just so I can be like, I read this. Just so people will be like, okay, great, did you get off? Assuming, of course, is that kind of game. I don't know. I don't know anything about Slow Damage. I think it's by Nitro Plus, though, so it's a 50-50. Oh, hey, I got a level up a while ago. I should probably use that before I forget again. There is, at the, at the Summer Game Fest recently, they suddenly released the open beta for, the game Mortal Shell 2, which was one of the proto Dark Souls clones that started coming out like 6 odd years ago. 2018 or so, I suppose. And I kept thinking I should absolutely download Mortal Shell 2 beta, even though I didn't particularly care for the first one. Because I'm willing to give games another chance, series another chance, if... well, rarely if the mood strikes, but... some series it gets one chance, and if it's bad, it's bad, and I'm never going back to it. But, they announced the Mortal Shell 2 beta, and I kept thinking, like, oh, I should download that. So it takes, so I can play it, theoretically, before they take it down forever. I don't know if it's a time demo or not. Beta, whatever. Same thing. There are trophies associated with the game, so I'm counting that as, you know, I guess it's more than a demo. But I kept thinking throughout the evening after I watched that, you know, gonna get home from work, gonna download it. Gonna download it, gonna download it, gonna download it. Get home, completely forget to download it. Day later, oh right, that game, I should download that. Forgot again. I actually have it installed, it's just that, you know, I want to play this. I want to play this game that I like, and not the sequel to a game I didn't like. Maybe I should give it a try before the demo gets taken down. Made unplayable. No more twig circlet for you. Is the rune guy even here, I wonder? So, but eventually I remembered to download the game, so... be proud of me. I remembered to do a thing. And it didn't take me like a year and a half to remember. Gonna put on these better gloves. Oh, what the hell? Right-click on a stash tab in this drop-down list and send it to the far left. What is... Okay. I know what words mean, believe it or not. I seem to recall there was some hammer I was kind of wanting to upgrade, but I don't remember what it was. I don't think it was the rune batter. Yeah, rune batter, not ruin batter. Swing batter batter. I don't know if Mortal Shell demo will even be any good. I'm not holding out hope for it, because I really didn't care for Mortal Shell 1. I don't think I even finished that game now that I think about it. But, you know, I'll give it a try at least. I can be somewhat generous and give the game a try, even though I don't hold out hope for it in the slightest. I suppose since I've talked about them before, I should actually run through the rest of the game shows that have happened recently. You know, Summer Game Fest, the Xbox show, PC game show, Future Game Show, that sort of thing. But I kinda don't care for a lot of the stuff they showed. Like, the ones that got a big pop out of me from, like, the Summer Game Fest was the trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance and the new trailer for Final Fantasy VII Revelation. Also Resident Evil Veronica. I wonder why they dropped the code from that. They'll probably explain later on, but I'm just curious now. I'm sorry to do this, but we're going to call it a little bit early. I will probably play some more later on today, this evening, when I do my Dark Souls stream as well. I do want to thank you, though, once again, for watching, enjoying the stream, and listening to my slight ramble tangent about Rule of Rose. I feel I could have been more concise with the points I was trying to make, but I was just going entirely off the top of my head, honestly. I just hope I didn't repeat myself too much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the stream. Please give me a follow on Twitch. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comment. I left a comment on one of my own videos on YouTube, on my VOD channel, where I decided to touch briefly on the fact that apparently I may have said something wildly offensive in my Dark Souls stream a while ago. I don't know. I don't know if femboy is really considered an offensive term or not. Please sound off in the comments if you think I'm being horribly homophobic. In which case, I would like you to know, I've probably fucked more men than you have. Or if I'm just letting myself get, swayed by the terminally online. That being said, I once again want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this. Thanks for stopping by. Next stream will actually be longer, I promise.